My name is Nazrin Mammadova, and I'm an artist of a multidisciplinary kind. And I am working at the intersection of sound and image. I've been obsessed with any form of creativity since childhood, and I believe that has significantly shaped the multidisciplinary nature of my practice. Reality and everyday observation often felt flat compared to the intensity of ideas in my inner landscape. So, in a sense, it wasn't exactly a choice. I've always had the urge to withdraw into that inner space because that's where the most of it truly happened. Music, in particular, played a key role in the inevitable formation. It was one of the first triggers that made me feel inspired to create, to translate something intangible into form. So, in a way, I feel I was born with a certain setting, the orientation towards imagination and expression. Creative practice has always felt like the most natural way of being in the world for me. A space where I can both lose myself and find myself, where to create and to contemplate are inseparable. From the very beginning, I was never interested in confining myself into one medium. For me, it has never been about choosing one form over another, but about finding the right vessel for an idea or a state. Some concepts demand the intimacy of drawing, others unfold into soundscapes or become immersive environments that require the body to move through space. This one time, I even developed a game design project as a form of public art. So, game design, for instance, emerged as another way of constructing worlds and inviting others into participatory experiences. So, in its very sense, my practice moves across various mediums. I love drawing, I love painting, uh, photography. I have quite few installation pieces, and I'm majorly interested in sound design. Recently, I also happened to make experimental electronic ambient and drone music. I think of it less as switching disciplines and more as navigating a single ecosystem. Each medium is a language, and when combined, they create a fuller vocabulary. Sound, for example, allows me to work with vibration and frequencies directly, while painting opens a field of color and presence, sometimes carrying light codes and expanding into rhythms of forms. Through chemical interventions on film, I explore experiment, transformation, and alchemy. I see all of these mediums as part of a single cosmology, a way to touch the spiritual dimension through matter and to translate inner states into shared, transformative experiences. They're simply different doors into the same search. For me, art is not an image, but a transmission, a kind of channeling of what comes from a deeper source. I perceive myself not so much as an author, but as a conduit through which this energy passes and takes on visible materiality through my artistic practice. The symbolic language in my work arises not as a system of fixed signs, but as a living field of meanings. Everything really depends on the state of the viewer or listener, on how open they are to this resonance. I don't think of guiding the audience in a literal sense. There's no instruction, no narrative they have to follow. My role is to create the conditions where energy can be perceived directly. I construct spaces, whether through sound, color, installation, that invite a certain kind of attention, a slowing down, and a state of receptivity. I act as a mediator only at the moment of transmission. Once the work is present, it has its own frequency and its own agency. And the audience doesn't need to be told what to feel. They encounter the vibration in their own way, through their body, their memory, and inevitably their inner landscape. So for one person, it might open a sense of expansion. For another, it might mirror pain or silence. What matters to me is not directing, but attuning, offering a field where resonance becomes possible. The work itself does the guiding, and I'm simply the channel that makes it visible and audible. The work called Metaphysical Landscapes that I've been developing for more than 10 years now emerged through altered instant film, where chemical reactions unfold into intricate and otherworldly imagery. For me, this series resembled translucent terrains, infused with vibrant essence. And, as it feels extraterrestrial, but at the same time, they're familiar. So every fracture, every gradient of color becomes a record of physical action and invisible forces. And what begins as a liquid alchemy of photography dissolves into something closer to mineral, elemental, and sort of unearthly. So each piece is a result of channeled energy meeting a precise moment where matter and intention collide to generate forms that can never be repeated. And again, that feels very magical to me. For me, art is an act of transformation, an immersion into the rhythms and synchronicities that connect us all. And I aim to construct portals, sort of thresholds into states of resonance that connect the body, mind, and spirit into something larger. For me, it's not about control or predetermined outcomes, but about surrendering to a state of flow where the unexpected can emerge. And in this openness, each work becomes a process of self-discovery that is definitely unfolding gradually. And it's also a very personal practice. The balance, I guess, comes through process, by allowing the work to carry my own presence while opening it wide enough for others to find themselves in it. I want the compositions to feel both rooted in my personal experience and expansive enough to touch something collective, something beyond the personal. I firmly believe that a work of art carries its own unique perception, symbolism, and energy. The meanings that arise for a viewer can never be imposed. They're authentic, organic, and belong solely to that individual. What matters to me is that the work of art does not require an intellectual key or a predetermined explanation. So they exist as portals with embedded light codes that only activate in the moment of the encounter with the viewer. And these codes cannot be deciphered by the mind. They respond to personal experience. Through personal experience. The viewer's encounter becomes just as essential as my own act of creation, yet absolutely different in nature. It's like a parallel, divergent reality that completes the work, in a sense. So for me, this is the true power of art. The work comes alive only when one allows themselves to open to it. At that point, the painting is no longer just an artwork, or a sound piece is not just an listening experience. It becomes an experience unique and repeatable and exclusive to each person. The work usually begins as an impulse, like an inner spark that immediately seeks the medium. So idea and the material often emerge together, almost simultaneously. What I know for certain is that I do not enjoy working from fully resolved concepts. What excites me is the process of discovering the idea through an act of making, or letting it reveal itself, like on the go, step by step. This is why experimentation is so central to my practice. It keeps my mind alive, keeps me restless, and it is constantly challenging, where repetition quickly turns dull for me. So I seek approaches that feel open-ended and unpredictable. In many ways, this explains my multidisciplinary practice. I need to move across forms to keep the dialogue fresh and to allow each idea to find its own vessel. If I was to define myself within the frames of some sort of philosophical concept, the closest one for me would be this contemporary idea of metamodernism. So a defining quality of metamodernism is its orientation towards emotion and feeling. Unlike postmodernism, which often dismissed emotions as irrational or unserious, modernism values them as a vital part of human experience. It's an attempt to try to hold balance between reason and emotion, like irony and sincerity, the old and the new. It asks us to remain open, honest, and unafraid of transformation, unafraid of being fully ourselves. For me, metamodernism is a way of navigating contradictions. The tension between science and mysticism, matter and spirit, the personal and the universal. And metamodernism gives me a framework that mirrors the way I already experience the world. And I experience it as a shifting field of paradoxes, where meaning emerges not from certainty, but from the courage to move between extremes. I hope that my art becomes a reflection of that oscillation, carrying both emotion and intellect, both intimacy and depth, as inseparable parts of the same unified experience.